The main point is simple. A former general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers said that during LeBron's run to the finals, the Eastern Conference was historically weak. That statement alone has caused a storm. Because when you talk about LeBron James, you are not just talking about a player, you are talking about legacy, greatness, and the GOAT debate. And when someone from inside his own organization says the path was easier, people are going to react. The former Cavs GM, David Griffin, did not whisper it. He said it clearly. He said they were in a historically bad Eastern Conference. He said the real target every year was the Western Conference. He said there was nobody in the East who was really going to beat them. That is not a random fan speaking. That is someone who built the team, someone who was in the room, someone who saw the matchups, the scouting reports, and the playoff runs up close. Now, let us break this down slowly and clearly. From 2011 to 2018, LeBron James went to 8 straight NBA Finals, first with the Miami Heat, then with the Cleveland Cavaliers. 8 straight finals is rare. It is special. It shows durability, skill, and leadership. Nobody can take that away. But the question being asked now is this: how strong was the conference he played in? When we look at the 2010s, one thing stands out. The Western Conference was stacked. The West had the San Antonio Spurs winning 60 games almost every season. The West had the Golden State Warriors winning 67 games, then 73 games. The West had the Oklahoma City Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. The West had the Houston Rockets with James Harden. The West had the Clippers with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Every year, the West playoffs felt like war. In the East, it was different. Yes, there were good teams. There was Indiana with Paul George. There was Toronto with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. There was Boston. But many times, those teams did not feel like true championship threats. They were solid, but not dominant. When you look at win totals during that period, the numbers tell a story. Most of the 60-win teams were in the West. Most of the 55-win teams were in the West. The top seeds in the West often had better records than the top seeds in the East. That is not opinion. That is record books. David Griffin's point was about advantage. If you are in a weaker conference, you can pace yourself. You can rest players. You do not have to fight every night just to hold your playoff spot. In the West, if you lost 3 games in a row, you could drop from 2nd to 6th. In the East, there was often more breathing room. Look at Cleveland's win totals in LeBron's second stint. In 2015, they won 53 games. The New York Knicks were physical and tough. The Indiana Pacers were deep. Jordan did not cruise to the finals. He had to fight. During Kobe's era, the West was stacked. The Lakers had to go through teams with 50-plus wins just to reach the finals. The Western Conference playoffs often felt harder than the finals. In LeBron's case, many years the hardest series was in June, not May. Now, this is not hate. This is not disrespect. This is analysis. LeBron's individual numbers during those runs were incredible. He averaged near triple-doubles in multiple playoff series. He carried teams. He hit game winners. He had legendary performances like the 2016 Finals comeback against the Warriors. That championship is one of the greatest in NBA history. But the road to get there? That is what is being questioned. Another factor is team building. LeBron played with all-stars in Miami and Cleveland. He had super teams: Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade in Miami, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love in Cleveland. When you combine that with a weaker conference, the path becomes smoother. That does not mean easy. It means smoother compared to the West. If that 2017 Cavs team had been in the West, their playoff path could have included the Clippers in Round 1, the Warriors in Round 2, and the Spurs or Rockets in the conference finals. That is a different journey. That is more wear and tear. That is more pressure earlier. Instead, Cleveland often flipped the switch in April. They coasted through the regular season. Then they dominated the East. The numbers support the claim that the West was deeper. More 60-win teams, more elite defenses, more MVP-level players concentrated in one conference. And here is something important. When LeBron moved to the West with the Lakers, he did not make the playoffs his first year there. Injuries played a role. The roster was young, but it showed that the West grind was real. In 2020, he won a championship with the Lakers in the bubble. That run deserves respect, but again, the road was different. The GOAT debate always includes context. Rings matter, finals appearances matter, but strength of competition matters too. David Griffin's comment hit hard because it came from inside. It was not a rival GM. It was not a former opponent. It was his own team executive. Some fans feel betrayed by that comment. Others feel relieved that someone said what they believed for years. The truth likely sits in the middle. Yes, the Eastern Conference from 2011 to 2018 was weaker than the West. The data supports that. Yes, LeBron benefited from that structure. That is logical. Yes, he still had to perform at a high level to capitalize on that advantage. Both can be true at the same time. LeBron is one of the greatest players ever. His longevity is unmatched. His scoring, passing, and basketball IQ are elite. His ability to adapt over decades is rare. At the same time, context shapes legacy. 8 straight finals in a weaker conference is different from 8 straight finals.
Let us go deeper into what it means to play in a weaker conference. During the regular season, teams in the Western Conference often had to fight every single week. The 8th seed in the West sometimes had 48 or even 50 wins. In the East, there were years when a team made the playoffs with a losing record. That difference matters. That changes how hard you have to push from October to April. If you are LeBron and your team knows that 50 to 55 wins will lock up a top seed, you do not have to go all out every night. You can manage minutes. You can rest on back-to-backs. You can focus on health. That gives you an advantage when the playoffs start. Meanwhile, teams in the West had no room to relax. A short losing streak could cost them home court advantage. A small injury could drop them several spots. That constant pressure builds toughness, but it also builds fatigue. Now think about playoff matchups. In many of LeBron's Eastern Conference runs, the early rounds did not feature elite opponents. Yes, there were competitive series like the battles with Indiana and Paul George. Yes, there were some close games against Chicago when Derrick Rose was healthy. But overall, there were not many true super teams standing in the way. Compare that to the Western Conference during the same years. The Spurs were always disciplined and deep. The Thunder had multiple MVP-level players. The Rockets built offenses that were almost impossible to guard. The Warriors became a dynasty. Those teams were knocking each other out before the finals even started. This is what David Griffin was talking about. He was not saying LeBron was not great. He was saying the structure of the league created a smoother road. Now let us talk about the idea of flipping the switch. During those Cleveland years, you heard it all the time. Analysts would say the Cavs were bored in the regular season. They were waiting for the playoffs. And often that was true. They would turn it up in April and dominate. That tells you something. It tells you they did not feel threatened during the regular season. In a stronger conference, you cannot afford to coast like that. Take the 2017 Cavs as an example again. They won 51 games. That roster had LeBron, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, Kyle Korver, and solid role players. On paper, that team could have pushed for 60 wins, but they didn't need to. They knew their real challenge would come in June. And that is where the criticism comes from. If you are building a GOAT case, every detail matters. People will look at how hard the road was. They will compare it to other legends. Michael Jordan had to get past the bad boy Detroit Pistons before he could reach the finals. That team was physical and experienced. They beat him multiple times. He had to grow stronger and smarter to get over that hurdle. Kobe Bryant in the West had to deal with teams like the Sacramento Kings, the Spurs, and the Mavericks. Many of those series felt like coin flips. They were wars. With LeBron in the East, there were fewer roadblocks of that level. Now, some people will say that's not his fault, and that is true. You can only play who is in front of you. You cannot control what conference you were drafted into. You cannot control how other teams build their rosters. But when evaluating legacy, context still counts. Another thing to consider is finals record. LeBron has a losing record in the finals. Some fans argue that making it there is already a huge achievement. Others argue that losing in the finals shows a gap compared to someone like Jordan, who went undefeated in the finals. This is where conference strength becomes part of the debate. If you reach the finals more often because your path is smoother, but then lose to stronger Western teams, critics will point that out. For example, in 2017 and 2018, the Warriors were clearly superior to Cleveland. Those series were not evenly matched. Golden State had more depth and more shooting. Cleveland struggled to keep up. But to reach those finals, Cleveland did not have to defeat a team as strong as Golden State in the East. So when someone says LeBron went to 8 straight finals, it sounds historic, and it is. But when someone adds that the East was weak during that stretch, it changes how people view that streak. Let us also remember that the East did improve over time. In the late 2010s and early 2020s, teams like Milwaukee and Boston became stronger. The conference balance began to shift. But during the core years of LeBron's run, the West had the heavier weight. Even players around the league have hinted at this reality. Many stars in the West have talked about how tough it was just to get through their own conference. Some players even joked that making the playoffs in the West felt like winning a series already. Now think about the mental side of this. When a former GM says something like this, it can feel like betrayal. Fans wonder why he would say it. Why now? Why bring it up? But executives often speak more openly after they leave a position. They are not protecting a current team. They are not worried about locker room chemistry. They are sharing what they saw from their perspective. David Griffin saw the standings. He saw the scouting reports. He saw how Cleveland prepared for opponents. When he says the real focus was on the West, that likely reflects internal strategy. This does not erase LeBron's individual brilliance. There were games where he scored 40, 45, even 50 points in the playoffs. There were elimination games where he carried teams that had no business winning. There were moments that will live forever in NBA history. But greatness can coexist with favorable conditions. Every legend has context. Bill Russell played in a smaller league with fewer teams. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird played in an era without today's level of global talent. Jordan played before the explosion of three-point heavy offenses. Kobe played in a slower pace era. LeBron played in an era of super teams and conference imbalance. No era is perfect. No path is identical. The real question is how you weigh those factors. If you believe pure skill and longevity matter most, LeBron's case remains strong. If you believe difficulty of competition matters heavily, then conference strength becomes more important. The debate will never fully end because it is not just about stats, it is about values. What do you value most in greatness? Dominance? Rings? Efficiency? Clutch moments? Strength of opponents? When the former Cavs GM spoke, he added fuel to that fire. He did not tear down LeBron. He added a layer that many fans already suspected, and that is why the reaction was so strong, because deep down, many people knew the East was weaker. They just did not like hearing it said out loud by someone from inside LeBron's circle. As time passes and LeBron's career moves closer to the end, more voices may speak freely. Former teammates, coaches, executives, they will share stories. Some will praise him. Some will offer criticism. That is normal. History often becomes clearer once the moment has passed. Right now, LeBron's career is still active. Emotions are still high. Fans are still protective. But when the dust settles, analysts will look at the numbers, the competition, and the structure of the league during his prime, and they will likely say two things at the same time. LeBron James was one of the most talented and complete players the game has ever seen, and the Eastern Conference during much of his finals run was not as strong as the Western Conference. Both statements can exist together without canceling each other out.
That is the balance.